Issue 119. We start out with Sonic going to a place called Furville to wake them up at night, warning them about a machine of Eggmans. First off, I couldn't believe there was a town called Furville by the actual Mobians there. It honestly sounds like a name given to Nuthole sarcastically by racist humans, so I was really caught off guard by Sonic saying it. And second, it sure is convenient that Sonic was awake at this time of the night to do this. It turns out the weapon he was waking them up for an evacuation for was called Caterkiller. Granted, that is one of the most annoying badniks of Sonic 1, but that doesn't change the fact that you just kill it in one hit. Apparently, this isn't that famous badnik, and instead Eggman named a train that goes through the dirt at over 100 miles an hour after one of his slowest abandoned badniks. That's weird, he couldn't think of a better name? And I thought his goal was to roboticize. So what's the point of sending a lethal machine like this that'll leave the people totally obliterated? Then again, he was fine with Nuthole being destroyed, despite it not letting him roboticize the people there. Sonic needs to stop the train, but spin dashing doesn't work, and his thoughts reveal that there's already been a town that was destroyed by this thing. Wow. Eggman suddenly shows up out of nowhere, and reminds Sonic that he knows where Nuthole is because Nicole was too stupid to delete the data about Nuthole and just put a virus there instead. By the way, Eggman clearly said that he had to delete his old corrupted files when he was still recovering from the virus. Wouldn't the virus have corrupted the data if it was put into it in the first place, thus deleting it? Either way, he plans to send the train to Nuthole to destroy it too, rather than sending robots there to roboticize everyone and benefit himself much more. Then Tails shows up in a biplane, and Sonic is relieved that he made it to him. Good thing he was awake at this time of the night too. Sonic asks Tails if he was able to figure anything out from the last time they spoke, and Tails explains that according to his analysis, so I guess he knows he's smart and trusts in that now, Caterkiller is pretty stupid. Well, it's named after a badnik, the lowest form of Eggman's robots, why wouldn't it be? And it can't even talk like the badniks of this comic can. Tails explains that since its indestructible software is run by simple computer software, if he could get inside, he could hack it. Then after Sonic uses his ridiculous intangibility power to phase inside the train because the writers couldn't think of a more logical way, Sonic takes a rest for a while exhausted after that, which is a weird way to balance it since he didn't get exhausted the other times he turned intangible, so it's kinda late now. Tails is able to lead the train off a cliff simply by mashing buttons on a control panel. Why is the control panel even there when presumably there was nobody in the train to control it? Who would normally be using the control panel? Did Tails defeat a bunch of robots off screen with a spin dash? Anyways, he saves Sonic himself by using his flight. The story ends with Sonic being humiliated awkwardly because he made a bad pun, and Tails is shown to be totally brainless by not getting it. This would only have a chance of being funny if it was implied that Tails does get the joke and is just sarcastically messing with him. In the next story, Bunny gets in danger and thinks that this is the last time she answers a distress signal without calling for backup. Also, your accent's slipping there, they wrote I instead of I. At least be consistent with spelling out the accent if you're insisting on doing it. She falls into a prison that she can't get out of despite her super strength, and Jack shows up to Bunny's displeasure. It turns out the radio SOS was luring Sonic instead, but the people of Sandblast City are petty enough to avenge themselves on a friend of his either way, even though she had nothing to do with destroying their force field. He plans on killing Sonic the way he supposedly tried to kill him. Sonic left the city to be overrun by Robians, but the Robians somehow got captured instead. Bunny stands up for Sonic, proving some loyalty to him, and Jack makes a cruel joke about how humorous it is that she's a cyborg and still being threatened by machines. I don't know why people can't just accept irony and ironic have two different meanings. If it's not unexpected, it's humorous. Why is that so hard? Anyways, Bunny easily defeats the Roby horde, leaving them all beaten up, and then she flies away with cyborg legs. The only reason there was any tension there was that I was worried she'd hold back too much since the Robians, meaning that if she destroyed any from fighting too hard, she'd technically be killing an innocent brainwashed person. But it all managed to be just fine. The final story has Nicole snarking at Rotor that he always fails at doing whatever it is he's doing with her. At least she's showing personality. You do this every time, Rotor, and it always fails. What makes you think it'll work now? Rotor says that it's because he's upgraded, and Nicole snarks that if he wants to access her hard drive to learn where the hell she came from and finally clear up the confusing hole in her backstory, he'll fail. Rotor explains that he's always been a curious person and tries to hack into her database with his main computer. Naturally, Nicole's very uncomfortable with this, as her database is her brain, and says, "If you insist, but just go easy, huh?" Rotor keeps getting taunting messages instead until he gives up. And then we see old Rotor say that hackers won't be able to breach the firewall he put in place, so nobody will know she's from the future. Back in the present, Rotor says that whoever Nicole's programmer was has inspired him to make some changes to his own computer security system. Later, we see Eggman complaining that he can't hack into Knothole's computer database in Knothole from his base in a really cold place that he put up there for some reason, saying that his security system isn't just an ego smasher, it's downright rude. That's kind of funny, actually. The first story was by Benny Lee. It involved Sonic stopping an out-of-control destructive train from destroying an out-of-nowhere village called a weirdly meta and lazy name at Furville, when he could just roboticize the people there. And speaking of weird names, I'm not too crazy about the name of the train either. Why call it Caterkiller? The story's got some great tension, which is obviously mandatory for an action series, but its ending was so anticlimactic, as Sonic just used his bullshit tangibility power again because he couldn't think of a way to get him in the train. What does being able to move fast have to do with turning intangible? There must be some levitation power involved to keep the blood and stuff from falling through the center of the earth and keeping everything in the right position. What does that required secondary power have to do with speed? And again, I think the biggest plot hole would definitely be that Sonic and Tails were awake in time. When the train, I guess the train destroying the town caused an alert to go to Knothole and that woke Sonic up, but Sonic isn't allowed to leave Knothole at this point in the comic unless they undid that law. The second story was by Carl Bollers, as was the third issue, where Rotor pointlessly tries and fails to discover where Sonic came from, which is all there is to say about it since they didn't bother to explain who actually made Nicole to be rebuilt in the future in the first place, instead just saying the future for one panel. The second story, on the other hand, had Bunny somehow get imprisoned in Sandblast City as bait for Sonic, only to defeat all the Robians used against her laughably easily and leave, with Jack not being given any sort of character development or backstory. One, I don't understand how the Sandblasters could have captured the Robians before they would destroy the city. I'm guessing they had people among them who could reprogram the Robians to not hurt the Sandblasters, but wait, no, then they just restore their free will while they're at it. They're still people after all. So maybe they defeated the Robians before locking them in the closet the same way Bunny defeated them without killing them. When Bunny doesn't know her own strength, so that sure is lucky for her that she didn't kill them. I like that Bunny stood up for Sonic and took his side, that was nice of her.